Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Elephants in the Room. I feel like we should start calling this Puppies in the Room because Coco always joins in on these episodes. She's so perfect and cute though. Like I don't know how I cannot let her be with me because she's just a little Velcro dog. Like she wants to be wherever I am or wherever her dad is at all times. She never wants to be by herself. So she's just a sweet little thing. Anyways, hello guys, welcome back. Thank you for being here. I hope you guys liked last week's episode. That was one of my favorites that I've done in the last little bit. I felt like it was, just like kind of on theme for what I want this podcast to be. And like what I love about this podcast, I don't necessarily want it to be anything super like niche, if that makes sense, like in the sense of like we obviously talk about mental health, we talk about relationships, but it's not like a mental health podcast or a relationship podcast. It's like a little bit of everything. I talk about my faith, I talk about my trauma, and so I don't know, I felt like last episode was kind of where I love to sit, where not on topics or conversations that I necessarily have a ton of knowledge about, but just like real experiences that I'm having in this life that are challenging and just talking about them with you guys and coming up with solutions and just all the things. So I really liked last week's episode. So I really hope you guys enjoyed, and I'm going to try to kind of start doing a little more stuff like that. So it's kind of on theme for today's episode. Now, I always struggle coming up with the right topic when planning these episodes because I try to find a balance of something that will resonate and help you guys, but also be vulnerable about what I'm going through. And so today I wanted to talk about self-love. Now, I feel like this episode has been a long time coming. I've had so many people slide in my DMs or comment or ask me, Nicole, how can I love myself? How can I find self-love? How can I practice self-love? How did you do it? How are you doing it? And, I talk a lot about my transition out of the Mormon faith and also when I got divorced and how my self-esteem and my self-worth and my self-love was at an all-time low and how I kind of had to build myself back up from ground zero. So, yes. Generally, I feel like I do have some of the foundational practices that I've learned about how we can really start loving ourselves, especially if we've never loved ourselves before. But what I want to be honest about and vulnerable about is that this is just something I still struggle to this day. And I feel like as I've gotten older, and as I've leaned into this podcast and just everything in my life, there's so many times where I'm like, I could love myself so much better. And also, I think that self-love gets thrown around so much. Like self-love is kind of like this woke, trendy thing, like you just have to have self-love and love yourself. And it's like, okay, but what does that even mean? And oftentimes I feel like it's portrayed or talked about as this very egotistical, confident, arrogant view of self-love. Like if anyone does you wrong, you cut them off. If anything's not working in your life, you cut it off. You're the best that they'll ever have. Like, your worth, and you're worth more than the next girl they're going to be with or the next guy they're going to be with. It's this superiority mindset that you're special, that you're chosen, that you're better than other people. And I don't think that that's really self-love. I don't think that that's a selfless self-love. And depending on your morals, depending on your standards, your beliefs, obviously all of us fall in different places, but you guys know, and I've said it before, I'm a professing Christian. I love Jesus. I believe in the Bible. Religion, I have my thoughts about, but all of that to say, I morally don't believe that loving oneself way more than others and living for myself is the way to live a purposeful life. I do believe in living for others, loving others, being selfless. Now, with all of that being said, there is a toxicity within all of that as well. I think on both extremes, it can be toxic. I think on the end of love yourself, you're better than everyone else, superiority, ego, like pride, all these things on that end of self-love. And also on that end of self-love, it's like, yes, boundaries are important. Yes, getting out of toxic and or abusive relationships is important. Yes, standing up for yourself and not tolerating disrespect or belittlement or mistreatment is good. But if you expect to walk in perfect relationships always and expect everyone that you walk in a relationship with, whether it's a friend, family member, loved one, you expect it to be perfect and you expect them to never hurt you or to never do anything wrong, you are never going to have any relationships in your life. If you cut everyone off that hurts you, that does you wrong, that doesn't see your value, you will never have relationships in your life because people are imperfect. So there is a grace and a love that we need to have for people when we're walking in relationship with them. Now, again, that does not mean you tolerate all of the bad things. That does not mean you stay in certain relationships and situations. But there needs to be a grace and an understanding and also an ability and a willingness to work through things. Now, again, each to their own. You know, some people may not want to work through certain relationships and vice versa, and that's okay. But what I'm saying is if we walked through life only loving ourselves and never, ever, ever giving grace or understanding, it would be really impossible to really ever have relationship with people and walk in relationship. And that's because people are imperfect. But just as people will let you down and hurt you, you will also do that to them, right? And also, I don't think personally that it's wise to think you're better than everyone. I don't think that that's self-love. I think self-love, like true self-love, is you believe that you're of value. Not that you're more of value than the person next to you, but you believe that you're of the same value. You believe that you're special. You believe that you're unique. You believe that you're worthy of love, of respect, of kindness, of good things. It's not, oh, I'm better than everyone. It's, I love me and I'm valuable and I'm worthy. That's the thing, is self-worth, I don't believe has anything to do with anyone else. Like true self-love, it's not about comparison. It's not about other people. It's about you and loving yourself enough to invest in yourself and believe the best of yourself and want the best for yourself and want to be the best version of yourself. It has nothing to do with other people. So all of that to say, on the other end, there is this stigma in this, teaching that if you're religious, whether you're Christian, Mormon, and now I'm like forgetting all the religions because those are the only two I know about, Catholic, any religion, or just a way of life that you may see, you have been taught your whole life, love others, love others, love others, put others before yourself. And I have firsthand lived out how that can be really, really terrible because you never even learn to love yourself. Do you ever go to church and they're like, love you, love yourself? No, they're always saying love others. And yes, loving others is very important, but equally as important is loving you. And you guys know this, and I've shared this verse before. You may not be religious, and that's totally okay. I'm so glad you're here. I sometimes like to pull up biblical references and different things. It's just because that's kind of what I believe in and something I really like to utilize in my life and in navigating things. So I only share it simply to support kind of how I'm feeling and my encouragement, but I don't support it to disrespect you or what you believe in. I hope that you receive it and take it for what it is, whatever that is for you. But the second greatest commandment for anyone who believes in the Bible is, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. Another translation, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. That is, unselfishly seek the best or higher good for others. And then another translation, you shall love your neighbor as you do yourself. Okay, so let's talk about that for a second. Loving your neighbor as you love yourself. I've talked about this before, but something that really, really opened my eyes and my heart to starting to love and accept my own self as I loved others, because I spent my whole life being codependent, a people pleaser, and constantly neglecting my own needs and ignoring my own emotional capacity and overgiving and not valuing myself the way I valued others. Is that when I first started going to therapy, and my therapist was like, Nicole, you need to love yourself more. You don't have self-love. You don't love yourself. I'm like, what? I mean, yeah, like I do. Like, I think I love myself. And also I was like, but listen, like my belief is that I'm supposed to love others and be Christ-like, and Christ laid down his life for people. And yes, he did. But also when you actually look at that verse and when you actually break it down, if you are loving yourself as you're loving your neighbor, or vice versa, let's say you don't respect yourself. You don't value yourself. You don't stand up for yourself. You don't give yourself grace. You're really hard on yourself. You're mean to yourself. You beat yourself up for the way you look, for the way you feel, for your life, whatever it may be. You don't accept your flaws. You don't accept what you've been through. You think it's because there's something wrong with you. If you flip that and you treated your neighbor like that, that wouldn't be really loving, right? It wouldn't be. So what I'm trying to get at here is that the key to actually being able to love others is to love yourself first. Not in an egotistical, prideful, conceited way. In an honest, kind, and firm way. I want you to think about the way that you treat others. I feel like most of the people watching this are going to say, well, I'm kind to them. I love them. I do favors for them. I take care of them. I consider them. And I want you to turn that around and think, am I doing that for myself? So all of this to say, I am not here to give you guys a step-by-step guide on how to love yourself, because to be honest, I'm still figuring it out myself. What I'm here to do is to open a conversation about what is self-love, what is unselfish self-love, is loving yourself selfish, all these questions that we go through in our mind, and the pursuit and journey of practicing self-love, because it is something you have to practice. So let's go back to the start here. Okay, so I kind of want to talk about when I first initially started trying to practice self-love. Let's go back to that, and then I want to trail into now 26-year-old Nicole. This was 18 or 19-year-old Nicole. I want to, I guess 20-year-old Nicole, but I want to go back to 20-year-old Nicole for a minute and talk about some of the things that really transformed my perspective on self-love, and also some of the actual practices that I did to help me learn to love myself. So the first thing is that I had to come to the place where I could look at everything that had happened to me in my life. I was abandoned by my parents. I was not chosen by them. They chose drugs over me. Now, again, that is not to bash my parents. I love my parents and I don't fault them. I understand that they had deeper things going on, and it actually wasn't about me and it wasn't personal. But as a child, you take it personal when your parents don't choose you. And I did. So I had to look at that and the ways that I was mistreated as a child. And not only that, I was bullied when I was young because I was overweight. So I obviously also took that personal. Like, well, I'm just not good enough. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not skinny enough. And then transferring over to getting married at 18 and then being rejected in that relationship, and ultimately having to step away from that situation and feeling rejected, feeling like I wasn't good enough, and then also reinforcing all of the things I already believed about myself. Oh, you're now divorced, which means you're even more damaged than you were as a poor girl with drug addict parents. Now you're even more damaged. Now you're even less valuable. Oh, someone didn't choose you again. Oh, you will never be chosen. You're not worth being chosen. You're not valuable. And I was basing my worth off of where I came from and how people treated me. That's how I base my worth. Now, again, makes sense, right? That would make logical sense, especially as a child. You would assume that if you were worthy and you were valuable, that people would value you, that you would be chosen 100% by people. And when the two closest people in your life, your parents and your spouse, don't choose you, that's a huge blow to your self-esteem. And so the first thing I had to accept and I had to realize is that what other people did and the way other people valued me and the way other people treated me had nothing to do with my value. It does not matter what someone did to me. It does not matter how someone viewed me. That didn't make me any less valuable. That didn't make me broken. That didn't make me not enough. That didn't make me of low value. It didn't. So that was the first thing that I had to accept. And it was hard because there was a lot of resentment and bitterness rooted in what I feel like I let people take from me. Because not only did all of that bad stuff happen to me, but I also let it take my self-esteem and my worth. And you should never let someone take that away from you because that comes from you. That doesn't come from others and it shouldn't come from others. So that was the first thing that I really had to accept and understand is that what other people did to me had nothing to do with me and it didn't have anything to do with my worth. And it oftentimes had something to do with them and what they were going through or just you weren't for them. And that's a hard one because I think it's hard to accept. And back in the day, I used to have a way harder time than that. Sometimes when people don't choose you or hurt you or don't value you, it's just because you're not their cup of tea. And that is okay because you're not everyone's cup of tea. Not everyone is going to like you. That doesn't mean you're not valuable. So that was the first thing I had to really accept that was really hard and took a lot of time. And the second thing that helped me start to love myself was forgiving others. Because when I was able to really forgive others and take away the weight and the debt that I feel like I had put on them for this bitterness of what I feel like was taken from me, I was able to start forgiving myself for the ways that I wasn't perfect in these relationships and in these situations, forgiving myself for staying in certain situations and relationships, resulting in more heartache, and having grace and compassion for myself, understanding that at the time that was the best that I could do. And that's okay. And so forgiveness for the other person and also forgiveness for yourself is really important. And then I feel like the other big shift for me was kind of what I was talking about is that I started to see that the self-love, idea was foreign in my brain because all I knew and all I thought was that I was supposed to be selfless and that I was supposed to give other people love. And even though I still stand by those things and I still strive to be selfless and to love others, I try my best, and I'm not perfect, but to make sure that that is paired with me loving myself too. And that ties into a whole nother layer of things, which we're going to talk about, and how when you actually truly love yourself, you will love others better. But also another thing that I had to come to terms with is that I knew that what had happened to me wasn't fair. And it wasn't okay, but I owed it to myself to not let it ruin my life. And I absolutely could have let it ruin my life. I absolutely could have let it ruin my self-esteem, my identity. I absolutely could still to this day be saying that happened to me, so that's why I'm still this way. That's why I'm miserable. That's why I'm not happy. That's why I'm this. I could have used it as an excuse and or explanation forever. But I knew what happened to me was not fair, not right, not good. And yet it is my responsibility to pick up the pieces and fix it. Because that's the responsibility that we all hold for our own lives. And you can say, well, it sucks that the person or the people that broke me aren't the ones who have to clean me up. They're not. You are. And if I would have accepted that a long time ago, I would have been better off, because I spent so long thinking that the person who broke me had to be the one to fix me. And until I realized that's not how it works, I wasn't actually able to really let go and start moving on with my life and start investing into me and start loving myself. So let's talk about some of the things that I did back then to kind of help me learn or start to learn how to love myself. Identity. I feel like self-love starts with identity. Who am I? Who are you? Who do you believe that you are? What defines who you are? For a lot of people, that's their morals, that's their beliefs. For some people, it's just who they are. You know, there's so many different layers. But for me, I had to establish, who am I and what does that mean? And I had to look at not only who am I, but who do I want to be? Well, I want to be loving. I want to be kind. I want to be strong. I want to be honest. I want to be X, Y, Z. I want to be these characteristics. This is what I want my character to be. Now, why? For me, obviously a huge layer of it is my faith in Jesus. Now, even if I didn't believe in Jesus, I would hopefully still want to be all of the things that I say. But that also plays into me discovering my identity and realizing, okay, well, God says I'm loved. God says I'm chosen. God says I'm worthy. God says I'm enough. So understanding my identity, who I am and who do I want to be, was the first start of starting to love myself. The second thing, I know this sounds very cliche, but you've got to invest in yourself. Like, all of the time and the energy that you pour into other people, you really need to look and say, am I giving that to myself? And I think also, coming from someone who spent so long in her life pouring and giving to others, I was really uncomfortable giving to myself because I was always so distracted with other people. Like, I had so many people that I was trying to fix and save and help and pour into and love, that I was able to neglect my own reality and my own self. And I didn't really pour into me in the ways that I should have, really, my whole life. And so I had to start investing in myself. And what does investing in yourself mean? It could mean anything. It could be investing in your health, investing in your, so health, physical health, mental health, spiritual health. It could be investing into your goals, your dreams, whatever it is. It's actual time, because oftentimes, what is an investment? It's our time, right? It's our money. And time is money, right? Time is the most valuable thing. And so taking your time and targeting it towards yourself and things that you need and things that you want and things that you desire. You know, if it's that you desire to be a kinder person, maybe it's spending time in your spiritual health. If you want to be a stronger person, it's spending time on your physical health. If you want to be someone who understands psychology more and starts to set boundaries with people and have better relationships, then you would want to invest in your emotional health, your mental health, right? So there's so many layers to all of it, but investing in yourself. And you know, I feel like a good way for me back in the day is I was able to kind of lay out and look at, what have I not done? What have I avoided doing? What things have I wanted to do, but I haven't had the time to do? I haven't had the energy to do. I haven't had the capacity to do. And one of those things at the time, 20-year-old Nicole, was I wanted to start an online boutique. And so that's something I did. And initially it was really uncomfortable and challenging to actually invest in myself, because part of not loving yourself is also not really believing in yourself. And I don't know if I really fully believed in myself. So I kind of took a risk and a gamble and said, I'm going to try to pursue this dream that I have, not because I didn't believe I could be successful, but because I just was uncomfortable and it was very unfamiliar, really pouring into myself and not to others. And so that was something that I did. So yeah, passions, just whatever it may be. And then the next thing that really helped me understand my identity and learn how to start to love myself was therapy. That was so huge for me. And this may be different for, you know, each person, because we're all so different and we all have such different backgrounds. So I don't know what you went through as a child or in any of your early relationships, but I can pretty confidently say that I think most people have been through really challenging things in their life, and you can coin it as trauma, you can coin it as whatever you want, but I would say that one of the best things you can do is go and seek professional help from someone who understands how the brain works, understands how traumatic events impact us and affect us in our day-to-day lives. And that is a huge game changer. Not only that, but it's a huge source of validation and direction. It's so life-changing to walk into a room with someone who is unbiased, who can sit down with you and walk through everything you've been through and look at you and say, that's not okay what happened to you, and you didn't deserve that. And, when there's emotional ties to people, it's really hard to see things as they are. It's really hard to see things for what they really are and the reality of them. So going to a therapist can really help you understand what's happened to you and the ways that it's affected you. And that is so validating in itself and can help to start you heal. And yeah, I don't know if I said help to start you heal, to brain work. I talk so fast, I get ahead of myself, but hopefully you guys get what I'm saying. Also, if you guys hear banging, it's because they're working on our pool in the backyard. Anyways, so that was a huge thing, therapy. And not only therapy, but specifically one other part to add about therapy that I feel like really played a big factor in learning how to love myself was actually starting to see the nature and the truth about my relationships with my family, my relationships with a significant other, to actually see what was going on and then to either walk out of those relationships or set boundaries within them to protect myself and to guard my heart and take care of myself a little bit more. So literally learning how to set boundaries with family and people in my life when I first went to therapy changed everything for me, because I didn't realize how much being in some of those relationships was actually hurting me and how much it was actually really affecting my ability to love myself, because I spent so much emotional energy pouring into these other people, and I was so invested that everything that happened within the relationships literally physically and mentally and emotionally took it out of me. So I had no energy left to give to myself, no love to give to myself, because I was giving so much to these people who were hurting me. And so assessing those relationships and setting boundaries within them not only helped me to actually have more capacity to love myself, but it's actually helped me to have better relationships with some of those people. And some of those people I've cut off. Some of those people I've cut off temporarily. Some of those people I've maintained relationships with. But I will say, in most of my relationships, I have set boundaries. And it has really helped me have love for myself. The next thing is that really helped me, 20-year-old me, was spending time with me. Spending time with me. I think it's really uncomfortable to be in your own presence sometimes, especially when you come from what I came from and just you don't really have a ton of love for yourself. And really, I feel like it's just weird because you don't even really know yourself. And so spending time with yourself, literally just going on like coffee dates, journaling, being really present with your own emotions, all of these things, just literally spending time with yourself alone and getting comfortable spending time with yourself alone really, really helped me. Like I went from literally being married to then being alone fully and spending so much time with myself. I was surrounded by so many people, and then I was surrounded by no one, and I was isolated. And even though I don't think isolation is a good thing, I do think it played a key role in my journey to self-love, because I was able to actually learn how to enjoy spending time with myself and how to embrace it. And that really, really helped me. And I want to talk about some of the things that I feel like really prevented me from being able to love myself, especially when I first started my therapy journey and I first started learning about self-love. The first thing is my toxic idea of self-love. I thought self-love was selfish. I thought self-care and living for yourself was un-Christ-like and evil, and I didn't want to be that kind of person. But when I realized that I could actually love people better if I first loved myself, it really changed the narrative for me. So that was one of the things that I feel like really hurt me in my journey to self-love. And the next thing was overcommitting, saying yes to everything and saying yes to everyone, overextending myself all the time to meet other people's needs. That is part of self-love and part of self-care, is that you have to be able to say no. You have to be able to let other people down sometimes. But you have to understand that sometimes letting other people down means you're actually taking care of yourself. And that's okay, because we are all responsible for ourselves. Like, you are not responsible for anyone other than yourself. And that's been so hard to come to terms with for me, because I spent so much, and still to this day, it's hard for me to not just love, because I'm an anxious attachment style. That's just what I do. The other thing that really hurt me in my self-love journey was just comparing myself to other people. I think comparison is just so evil, and comparison is bad on both ends, right? If you're comparing yourself to someone and you're saying, oh my gosh, they're so much better than me, they have it better than me, I suck, my situation sucks, that's terrible, because we are all so unique and also different, and our life is also different, and also you have no idea what's going on behind the scenes in their life. But then on the other end, if you're comparing yourself to someone and saying, oh, I'm so much better than them, I have it better than them, it's weird, because it gives us a false sense of validation. But it's like, you have no idea. You have no idea what they're going through. You have no idea what situation they're in. Like, comparing yourself either way is just wrong. And it's like comparing apples to oranges. You are so unique and so different, and your life is so unique and different than everyone else. You cannot compare yourself to someone else. You just can't. And it does not help you in your journey to self-love. You are comparing yourself to you. That's the only person you compare yourself to. You want to be the best version of you. It's not about anyone else. And another thing that I feel like hurt my journey and or prevented me in my journey of trying to learn self-love was trying to earn worth through people pleasing. And I said that already, but like, I was so uncomfortable with people not liking me, with disappointing with people, with letting people down, that I would rather disappoint myself, let myself down 1,000 times than let someone else down. But that's not maintainable long term. And you're going to get to a point, and I absolutely got to this point where I was so bitter and so angry at people in my life because I let them take all my joy, all my peace, all my sense of self and what I thought about myself. I gave full control to other people and the way they treated me, and then I blamed them for it. But I had to wake up and realize that it is, yes, a natural response to be affected when someone you love hurts you, or when someone you love doesn't fulfill something they say they're going to do, or whatever, betrayal, rejection, whatever. It's normal to have a reaction, to be angry, to be upset. But when you give someone else full control over your well-being, that's your fault. That doesn't discredit the damage that they did to you, and that does not make what they did to you okay. But I had to learn, and it sucks. It's a crappy truth. I wish it didn't work this way, but we're responsible for ourselves. And we're also responsible to pick ourselves back up. And so that was something that really hurt me in my journey of self-love until I actually learned to accept that. And it sucks. It's a harsh reality. I think we think that everything is an equal exchange, and if we give X amount of love and X amount of time, that we'll get something in return. And when we don't, it sucks. But it's also like we willingly gave, and we can't ever have surety knowing that we're going to get something in exchange. And that ties into why when you're loving others so deeply, or at least you feel deeply, when you're not acting out of a place of self-love, you're not really loving them, because when we're loving people out of a place of insecurity and out of a place of lack, there's usually a lot of, subconsciously we're kind of desperately doing things in an effort and an attempt to gain something or to get something, to get approval, to get validation, to get love. When true love, true love is actually, it's giving. It's you don't give to receive, you just give to give. That's true love. And the next thing that really hurt me in my journey of learning to love myself was neglecting my own voice to favor other voices. This is something that still kind of just rocks me to this day and makes me sad. So that to this day, it is so hard for me to even hear my own voice in things. When I'm going through something hard, when I'm trying to make a decision, when I'm trying to be in tune with myself and my own emotions, I have such a lack of self-trust to this day because I've never really honored my own voice. And the last 5 years since I've started therapy, I've done it a lot more than I ever have, and I'm very proud of myself for that. But for so long in my life, I shoved that voice down. I shoved my voice down that it got so quiet that I couldn't even hear it. And now I feel like I'm constantly trying to figure out if that's me talking because I've never really honored that voice and let that voice speak up enough and given myself that reassurance that my voice gets louder and louder. And again, the last 5 years, I've done it a lot more than I ever have, but it's still hard and I still lack self-trust. Now, that's some of the things that 20-year-old Nicole did to start to learn self-love. Now, it brings me to here. I'm 26 now, and I have definitely noticed ways now that I have abandoned myself and ways that I have not loved myself and ways I could be better. And it's not perfect and it's never going to be perfect. And I think that's the core of a lot of the stuff we talk about is that it's a practice. It's something you actually have to do every single day. It's not something that you just wake up and you're like, I love myself and I'm just going to do everything to love myself and I'm never going to slip up and I'm never going to do anything wrong. It's like, no, we're going to fall. We're going to fail. We're going to let ourselves down. We're going to be mean to ourselves sometimes. It's natural. And I think now as I'm older, I'm 26, my frontal lobe is developed, which is awesome. But I'm like, wow, I still struggle to love myself and to know what that really even looks like and to know how to do it on a day-to-day basis. And so this is less of a me telling you guys, this is how you do it and I'm perfect and I don't know. No. Not that I ever say that, but this is just an open conversation about it's hard. Self-love is hard. And that's why I think in the past when people have commented and DM'd me and been like, oh, how do I love myself? I'm like, well, it's hard because even though I feel like I've come to a place where I do, it's still something I have to work towards and it's still challenging and I still get conflicted about it. I still have that hyper religious voice in my mind that's like, oh, you're being selfish. You're not being Christ-like. And I'm like, but I'm trying, it's a lot. It's a lot to unravel and understand. Now, this is where grace comes in. Whatever it is that you learn in this life and start practicing, you're going to slip up and you're going to fall back. And we are creatures of habit. And a lot of the things that I struggle with from my childhood, they easily pop back up. And that's just part of life, especially when I get triggered, when I get hurt. It's normal to go back to that little 8-year-old Nicole who never felt valued, never felt loved, never learned how to let other people take care of her and just constantly was trying to be a caretaker. But it's recognizing that, giving yourself grace, but still trying to be better about it. Because again, I said this already a million times, but the more you love yourself, the better you can love others. So now I want to talk about doing the work that no one sees, because this is something I'm realizing now as a 26-year-old, something that I feel like is really important in self-love. People think self-care is just going to the gym, chasing your dreams, working hard. And those are all good things, don't get me wrong. But what about the stuff no one sees? The heart work, the soul work, the parts of you that you're still trying to forgive. So let's talk about self-regulation. Self-regulation is honoring your nervous system, tuning into emotions, and creating safety inside yourself. This one is really hard to do and something I'm still learning to do, but your body is always trying to tell you something. You know, your nervous system is like, I've had enough, I'm tired, I'm this, I'm that. And oftentimes we just ignore and neglect what our body is trying to tell us because we don't want to stop. We want to keep going. We don't want to take breaks, you know, and sometimes your body just is like, I need rest. I need comfort. I need this. And so whatever it is that your body is trying to tell you, it's like being tuned into your own emotions, which is really hard to do in your whole life. You neglected them, but to be able to check in with yourself and be like, what do I need right now to feel safe, to feel loved, right? And trying to practice those things within yourself. The next thing is no external validation, no audience. Where healing really happens is saying no to others even when it's hard. I want to talk about this, and this is so hard and so true. I've come a long way in my journey of life, but again, very still imperfect and still trying to figure it out. But guys, saying no to others is so uncomfortable and so hard and can hurt us because we care so much about other people and we care so much about what they think, and we don't want to hurt people, and we don't want the discomfort of the way that it'll affect the relationship when we say no to someone. But saying no to someone oftentimes means saying yes to yourself. When you're saying no to someone because you set a boundary, because you know you don't have the emotional capacity to say yes, whatever it looks like, when you say no, it's usually because you're saying yes to something you need, to something you want, to some type of treatment or feeling or whatever. Like, you are saying yes to you. You're honoring you and yourself by saying no oftentimes. So saying no sucks. And sometimes it's so much easier to just say yes, because then you avoid conflict, you avoid discomfort, you make the other person happy. And this could be at work, this could be with a family member, this could be in a career, in a relationship, a friendship. Like, we say yes to things we want to say no to because we don't want to let others down, and we don't want the discomfort that comes with saying no to someone. Because when we say no to someone, that person has the right to respond in whatever way they want to. And sometimes it's hurtful. Sometimes they pull away. Sometimes we lose out on opportunities. Sometimes we lose friendships, whatever it looks like. When we say no to someone, they have the right to go around and do whatever they want with that. And living in that discomfort is really hard, especially when you know that if you said yes to something you didn't want to say yes to, you would at least avoid the unknown, right? And so that's something that I've really, really, really been trying to work on, is saying no when it means saying yes to myself. If I feel like saying no to something is saying yes to myself and honoring myself and honoring what I need or what I want or how much I can give or how much I can't give or whatever it looks like, saying yes to myself is worth saying no to others sometimes. Now, that doesn't mean we should do it all the time. Sometimes it's good to extend ourselves. Sometimes it's good to compromise. Sometimes, you know, there's a time and a place for everything, but understanding that sometimes saying no to others means saying yes to yourself is really important. And just reminding yourself that, like, saying no to someone else or something else, it should never be rooted in rejection. It's just rooted in love for yourself, and knowing that if you overextend yourself or you do something that you don't want to or XYZ, you're not going to be able to show up in that situation or in the relationship in the best way, because you're going to feel taken advantage of. You're going to feel a boundary crossed. You're going to feel like you've overextended yourself, whatever. So you know that if you say no, it actually will make you feel better, which will actually help you love that person better or love the job better or whatever it is. And then the next one, I've said this before, but just not beating yourself up for who you were or the mistakes that you've made. And still to this day, it is so easy for me to look at my life and nitpick everything I've done wrong and all the ways that I could have done better. It's so easy to do that. and just in my everyday life. When I commit myself to things or say I'm going to do things and then I don't, whatever, I could look better, be better, have more, all these things. And it's so easy to beat ourselves up for that. But just giving yourself grace and also understanding that most of the time we're doing the best that we can. And if you're not trying your best, you'll know that. But I would say that most of the time we are trying our best, and we've got to give ourselves some credit for that. Now, with that being said, self-love also, I feel like, means being really honest with yourself and holding yourself accountable. It's like, I feel like self-love is this perfect combination of grace and love and truth and all these things. But holding yourself accountable and checking in with yourself. And yeah, if you make a mistake or you do something that's out of character for you, or you don't follow through on your word, holding yourself accountable and being like, hey, you're better than this. You can do better than this. And coming from a place of love and support and encouragement rather than a place of anger and shame and guilt is really important, because that's what's hard. Is there's nothing wrong with correction or like conviction in a religion sense, but guilt and shame are never coming from the right place, and guilt and shame won't ever push someone into doing something the right way or into you changing a certain habit or getting better in a certain way. Like, shame and guilt will only push you further into the hole. And it's hard to not have shame and guilt when we do things wrong. But yeah, take responsibility for your growth and choosing not to repeat what once hurt you. I think we make mistakes all the time in life, and instead of looking at it as something bad and as something that ruined our life, we can look at it as a lesson learned, which truly is just as valuable as something going good for you. And I think the next thing that I'm learning as 26-year-old Nicole and learning how to love myself is sometimes the deepest form of self-love is giving yourself what your parents never gave you. For me, comfort, safety, presence, and unconditional care. I think I have spent my whole life taking care of others and have not taken care of myself in the best way that I can. And there's been times where I've been better at it and times when I've been worse. But I think even as a 26-year-old, I'm like, I want to take better care of me. And what does that look like? What do I need to do to take care of me? And sometimes that means holding myself accountable and pushing myself to work harder, do better. Sometimes that means giving myself rest. Sometimes that means treating myself, and I've said this before, but I feel like the perfect formula for really walking in a relationship of love for yourself and self-love is a combination of self-soothing and self-care. So self-soothing is anything that's soothing to your body. So like, let's say a good self-soothing thing would be like watching a movie or taking a bath or reading a book or getting an ice cream or making a yummy meal or whatever. It may be something that soothes you. And then self-care would obviously be like putting a face mask on or going to the gym, So I feel like there's a combination of those two things. When you can balance that, I really feel like that's one of the best ways to love yourself. And I think also when you really look at your life, and when I've looked at my life and I've looked at what have I always tried to get from others? What have I always tried to gain from situations, from relationships, from friendships, from life, whatever, all the things. What are the things I deeply desire the most? And a lot of those for me, obviously, unconditional love. Another huge one for me is security, safety, feeling safe. That's something I've always tried to seek outwardly. But when you can actually look at whatever it is that you've always tried to receive from others, whether it's subconsciously or intentionally, when you can turn that around and give that to yourself and say, okay, so for me, like, Nicole, how can you give yourself safety, and how can you give yourself security, and how can you give yourself love and acceptance? And so I have to look at my own life and say, how can I achieve those things? How can I make myself feel safe? And I feel like a huge part of making myself feel safe is creating emotional safety for myself and listening to myself and honoring my nervous system and my body and different things. And how can I gain security? Well, investing into myself and into what I believe in and what I'm passionate about, and pouring into myself just as much as I do for others. So there's a lot of different things, but when you look at what you have always tried to receive from others, or what you have tried to receive in your relationships or friendships, again, whether it was intentionally or subconsciously, like when you say, I think we've all looked at someone and said, I wish I felt this from you, or I wish I want this, right? And when we look at those things, we can kind of turn them around and say, how can I actually give that to myself? Because like I said, no matter what kind of situation you're in, no matter what kind of relationship you're in, we are all like responsible for our own well-being, and we're all responsible for our own happiness and for our own joy. And we can't, like, no one in our life is ever going to be enough to fill our cup. Like, we've got to take care of us and fill our cup and meet our needs ourselves. And again, not that relationships and friendships and different things don't help you, but it's really important that you look at where are you getting all of those things. And for me, that's something I have to do because of my past, because of my background. It's really easy for me to look for those things in everything else but myself. And so trying to do that for myself is hard, but also really good and important. And especially as I'm getting older, I'm learning I gotta fulfill my own needs first, and then the others can add to it, if that makes sense. The next thing is that I've had to ask myself is, are you doing it because it looks good or because it's good for you? Self-care is not about external things. It's not about what we look like. It's not about how wealthy we are, how successful we are, how good we look. Like, yeah, all of those are good things. All of those are good things to invest into. It's good to invest in your health. It's good to invest in your business, into your passion, into your career. It's good to invest in all the external things that people see. But what are you doing that no one sees, that no one knows about, that's an act of self-love? That's an act of honoring your soul, your body, your spirit. Like, what are you doing behind closed doors that can't be seen by people? Because if it can be seen by people, well, we're getting validation from it. And self-love is not, it's not about what people can see. It's also about what people don't see, which is so much, right? And now I just want to talk about, I feel like, some of the differences that I feel when I'm really having self-love for myself, and when I also am self-abandoning. So abandoning myself and my sense of self, or loving myself and being in tune with myself. When I feel like I'm loving myself, I feel peace, even when I'm sad, even when there is disruption in friendships or relationships or family relationships, even when those are rocky or going through hard times, I feel peace because I know I'm honoring myself and my own heart. I feel like my nervous system usually feels a little more regulated. I feel a lot more grounded in my body. I don't feel as numb or as checked out. And I also feel like I get better at saying no without having a guilt and a shame around it. And I also feel like I start to feel supported by that, like, inner voice inside myself. It becomes a little less negative and a little less harsh, and it becomes a little bit more encouraging. Now, when I'm not really walking in a place of self-love, I usually feel anxious, disconnected, and restless. I feel chronic tension or a lot of uneasiness in my body. I'm maybe in fight, flight, or fawn. I usually am overcommitted, reactive, or exhausted. And I also feel like I'm betraying myself usually when I'm not walking in that self-love. And usually I feel a lot of shame and guilt for resting or slowing down, when in reality I'm resting and slowing down because it's too much and because I'm not actually practicing self-love and self-care. Now here's the thing, like, you could go and look up what is self-love and how do I do it? And you could have all the knowledge and all the things, but self-love is so much deeper than that. And it's just a daily thing. I think it sucks because the hard truth about life and about everything is that it's everything, like in our life, our relationship with ourselves, our relationship with others, so many small decisions lead up to that. Like, we are a sum of all the decisions we make. And so it's easy to feel like you may know the big things or the important things about self-love or about how to walk in it. But if you're actually not practicing it daily, it's not going to be really, really like thorough, true self-love. And so I think, just like looking at your life and looking at the daily choices you make, and every day just trying to get an inch closer. And some days you're going to fall off, and some days you're not going to do the thing that's honoring to yourself, and you're not going to take care of yourself. And some days you're going to overextend to others or in relationships, because sometimes that naturally happens. Like, it's a push and pull, and sometimes your partner or your friend or your family member doesn't have as much to give, and you have to make up for what they can't give, and vice versa. So there are going to be times where you're not going to be able to perfectly take care of all of your needs. But when we don't take care of our needs, we have to understand why we're feeling unsettled or why we're anxious or why we're tired, and then also honoring ourselves enough to pick ourselves up and give ourselves what we need to then get to a better place. And with that being said, I've said this a couple times in the episode, but guys, when we love ourselves better, and when I say love ourselves, it's like just taking care of yourself. What does taking care of yourself look like? It means taking care of your physical health, your mental health, your emotional health, your mental well-being. It means just anything you would think of when you think about taking care of someone else. You turn that, and are you doing that for yourself? When you're really doing that for yourself, you're coming from a full place. You're not coming with half a glass. You're coming with a full glass. And then when you have a full glass, you're actually able to love people so much more unconditionally. You're able to love people out of a place of just purely giving, because you're not expecting anything in return, because you've already fulfilled a lot of those needs that you have. And then everything that you receive from someone else, it's an overflow. Like, it's an overflow of love. It's an overflow of whatever you need. And so it's so important to know that self-love is not the lack of loving others. It's the knowledge and wisdom to know that loving yourself first and taking care of your needs first means that you'll be able to show up better for people in your life, and you'll be able to love them better. And man, let me just tell you, the more that I love myself and practice self-care and self-soothing and all these different things, the happier of a person I am, the more joyful of a person I am, the more calm of a person I am, the more selfless of a person I am when I'm able to give to others. But there has to be boundaries. There's boundaries within anything. And if we just give all the time and we never take time for ourselves and prioritize ourselves, like, it's not going to be good, because then you're loving others from an insecure, small place where you aren't having any of your needs met. You're not taking care of yourself, and you're not really going to be able to love others properly. You're just not. And so I think just remembering that self-love is not selfish, and self-love is literally an act that will actually help you love others better. Truly, truly, truly. It cannot feel like that sometimes, but it really is. And if you're watching this, I encourage you to go and do more research. If there's anyone that you know that talks about this, go and learn about it more. But also, I think just really simply think about how you would take care of an 8-year-old. If you were in charge of an 8-year-old, what would you do? There are a lot of ways that you would take care of them. You would feed them, you would comfort them, you would support them, you would be honest with them, you would spend time with them, like all the different things. So everyone's life is different. Everyone's situations are different. So I just want you to look at your life and think, especially if you're someone who tends to give to other people and not give to yourself, look at the way you give to someone else. And let's just say put yourself in someone else's shoes. So whatever it is that you're going through, if you're feeling like, man, I don't really love myself and I don't know how to get there, I want you to flip it and say, think of someone you love the most, whether it's a friend or a family member or a significant other, and say, if this person was going through this, or if this person was in this situation, what would I do for them? How would I take care of them? And then do that for yourself. Give that to yourself. I think it can feel overcomplicated and big when we think about self-love, but it's really simply just taking care of our own needs, our emotional needs, our physical needs, our mental need, like all these different needs that we have. It's just taking care of that and not feeling bad for it. Not feeling bad for it. Self-love is doing what your heart needs, even when no one sees it, and even when it's hard. And it's gonna be hard. It's going to be hard, and sometimes part of loving yourself is walking away from people who do not love you and who do not respect you and who do not value you. Sometimes it's setting boundaries within those relationships. Sometimes it is so hard to love yourself when you're walking in relationship with people who don't love you, who don't honor you, who don't value you. And so it's not about this superiority of, I'm better than them. They're never going to find anyone like me. Fill in the blank with a friend, family member, loved one, whoever you feel that way towards. Like you feel like someone doesn't see your value and you think they're never going to find anyone better than me. No, that's not what it's about. It's about loving yourself enough to know that you are worthy of more and that you deserve more. That's it. That's it. It doesn't have to be about anyone else. And it's about loving yourself enough to walk away from situations and relationships that you're not honored, valued, respected, taken care of. Again, not that any relationship or situation is going to be perfect. If it was, that would be awesome, but that's not reality. Relationships take work, friendships take work, careers take work, anything you're in, it's not going to be perfect all the time. But in your heart, you know. And if you don't, talk to someone. But if you feel X, Y, or Z about a situation or a relationship, set boundaries, change things, remove access, or remove yourself completely, whatever you need to do. But just know self-love is confusing. It's hard. It's scary. It's uncomfortable. But I'm telling you, you will be able to love others better when you start loving you. And if you loving you and you taking care of your own needs pushes someone else away, they have some healing to do. And you may have to restructure how the relationship looks and set certain boundaries and clarify some things with them and ask for clarity and talk and problem solve, and then you'll come to a point where you decide that either the relationship can work or the friendship can work or whatever it may be, or that for now it can't, whatever it looks like. But pursue peace and pursue self-love because they really do help us love others more. So, and it just doesn't matter what people think of you, okay? I know it's hard. I still struggle with that today. So much of the last 5 years have been letting so many people down in my life and losing so much trust and respect of people that I care about. Family specifically mainly, but also some friends and different things because I left the religion and because of what I do now with the podcast. And a lot of people disagree with me and a lot of people don't like what I do. But I have to remember that I have to live in my body 24 hours of the day. So if I believe that what I'm doing is right, and if I believe that if I'm doing things from a pure place with good intentions, if other people don't like that, that's okay. It's okay. It's okay to not be liked by others. It's okay, I promise. It gets easier, but it's still hard. But we're learning together. We're learning together, guys. It's hard. Okay, another thing, guys, is loving yourself isn't truly loving yourself if you don't love yourself at all stages. It's really easy to love yourself when you're winning in life. when you look good, when your skin looks good, when your body looks good, when you're the weight you want to be, when you're making money, when you're having success, when relationships are good in your life, when people are accepting you and valuing you. It's really easy to love yourself. But it is really hard to love yourself when you're failing, when you're not in the best physical, mental, or emotional health, when you're losing money, when you're not being successful in your career, your passions, when you have failed, when you've let people down. It is really hard to love yourself in those times. But we have to love ourselves at every stage, and understand that the key to getting out of some of those dark places and the key to being the best versions of ourselves is allowing a space for us to be who we are with all our flaws, with all our failures, with all of our mistakes. You are never going to be perfect. You're never going to have it all together. Ever. There's so many things that I could sit here and critique about myself right now. Things I don't like about my appearance, things that I feel like I failed at, things that I wish I would have done different, things that I could be doing better now. And guess what? The reality of it is I'm not going to wake up and do everything that I set my mind to tomorrow. I'm not going to wake up and change every bad habit that I have tomorrow. Maybe one day I will. But you are never going to be doing everything perfectly all the time. You are never going to be immune to making mistakes, ever. And when you can love yourself even in those places, and love yourself even when things aren't going good, you will help that little child within you that just wants to be loved and accepted as they are. And when there's love and acceptance, that's when you can really, really, really have growth and change. But when you're beating yourself up and you're talking poorly to yourself and all these different things, and you don't accept and love yourself for all the things that you are and all the things you struggle with, you're not going to be able to really have change and growth, because the guilt and shame pushes you further deep into the hole. And it's like, also, I think just accepting things that you struggle with, accepting characteristics or habits or things that you maybe don't like. That's okay. Like, it's okay. Like, I can identify that I'm a really loving person, and I can love that I'm a loving person. And I can also identify that I'm someone who talks a lot, I guess you could say. That's okay that I talk a lot. And also, I'm someone that really, struggles with lots of different things. Like, I could sit here and analyze everything, but it's okay to accept the parts of yourself that aren't perfect or aren't ideal, because they're all a big sum of who you are. And yes, self-improvement is important. Yes, self-betterment is important. But also resting and accepting in who you are today, who you are right now, is so important. You're never going to have it all figured out. You're never going to be perfect. Loving yourself the way you are today. Not, I'll love myself when I do this. I'll love myself when I have this. No. We already have a whole world that looks at us, that conditionally loves us when we do X, Y, or Z. People who accept us when we do X, Y, or Z. We need unconditional love. And we've got to get that from us first. So love yourself no matter where you are, no matter what stage you're in, no matter what you're going through, no matter what you would change, no matter what you wouldn't. Accepting yourself is so important. And I feel like that's the key. It's just acceptance for where you are, where you've been, and not beating yourself up for it. We've got to love ourselves at all times, because from true love and compassion comes growth and change and good, right? But if we don't love ourselves, it's like we live in a mean world. We live in a world of so much conditional love. We've got to have that unconditional love for ourselves. So I really hope it helped. I really hope that you got something today that was able to encourage you or inspire you. And if you didn't, thank you for being here anyways and hearing me. And I think it's really hard for me to process and or even understand that there are actually people listening on the other end, and there are people that are walking with me through all these things I talk about. And yeah, I just pray that this podcast can be whatever it is that the Lord wants it to be, and he will use it for whatever it is that he needs to. And I don't know if I'll ever be able to comprehend or understand it, but what I will say is I'm so thankful to have people like you guys that love me, that support me, and that hear me, and that walk with me, because community is one of the most beautiful things we can have in this life. So I hope this helped. I love you guys so much. You guys know if you want to support me, you can share this podcast with a friend, share it on your story, interact, comment, DM, leave me a rating. That helps me so much on Spotify or Apple. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. You guys can follow me on Elephants in the Room on all the social media platforms. And yeah. I love you guys so much. Without further ado, I will close out this episode by asking you what elephants are in your room. My name is Nicole, and I will talk to you next week.